Today, a beauty from the Western Empire will marry a man she has never even heard of before. And now she will see him. The girl was very interested in what her fiancé looked like. "Congratulations, Lady Arna, I was waiting for you," said the young and handsome Duke Cassian of Ternugan. "Here, we met again," he added. The girl opened her mouth in surprise. She couldn't believe that she was marrying him. The lady believed that fate had decided to play an evil joke on her. These two actually had a very strange acquaintance. 3 months ago, a ball and an imperial banquet were held on the lands of the Western Empire. Lady Arna did not want to be present at all, but her mother made her go. The girl came, but stood on the street and did not enter, so no one saw her at the ball. She decided that she would just greet the emperor quickly and go wherever she wanted. She heard how she was being discussed in the hall. One girl said that the Duchess was very angry and was looking for her daughter everywhere, but Lady Arna did not seem to have come again. Arna imagined what would happen to her if her mother caught her. She would live 30 lives in hell. The girl decided to meet the emperor so that her mother would not see her. The lady knew that the emperor was now on the 3rd floor. Since Arna was in a suit, she successfully climbed onto the balcony of the 3rd floor. Climbing in, she saw a man there. It was a tall young man in a masquerade mask. Arna didn't know who he was, but right now she had more important things to do than uncovering his identity. The girl ran further, and when the guards asked if His Grace knew what that suspicious noise was, he replied that it was just a charming stray cat running past. Arna entered the hall on the 3rd floor. She took someone's mask on the table and put it on her face. In front of her, surrounded by people, stood the Emperor of the Western Empire. Emperor Cyclone IV was her immediate superior and Arna's maternal uncle. The girl saw her mother next to him. Arna's mother, Duchess Rosalia Brilt, was very strict with her daughter. Therefore, Arna, as soon as she saw her, she ran again. The Duchess noticed something and headed in her direction. The girl turned away and closed her eyes, thinking that she would be caught now. The guy in the mask hid Arna under his robe and said to her, "Well, here is my charming stray cat." Lady Arna looked into his eyes and asked if they had seen each other before today. The young man pointed a finger at her to keep quiet. Duchess Brilst approached them. She apologized to the boy and said that she was looking for her daughter. The young man said that he is here with his bride, but she is a little shy. The Duchess left, and Arna did not understand why he helped her again. The guy in the mask asked the girl if she found what she was looking for. The lady asked what he was talking about. Then he said that she seemed to be an uninvited guest at this banquet, and the girl asked why he was so calm next to her, knowing that she was not invited here. The stranger replied that he was just interested in one stray cat. Lady Arn thanked him for his help and placed her badge with the family crest in his hand. While Cassian was examining this badge, his aide informed him that the emperor was calling for His Grace. The Duke replied that he had to go so as not to keep the emperor waiting. Compared to the Northern Empire where he comes from, the lands here are much richer and more fertile. However, all these benefits are the merit of one man, the swordmaster Revelgos, the shield of the Western Empire. Throughout history, only 100 people have been awarded the title of sword. Loyal to his homeland, he saved the country from destruction and did not give any reason to doubt his greatness. Cassian told the emperor that he would like to meet the swordsman. The emperor replied that he never comes, even at his summons. That's just the way he is. The emperor simply could not tell everything. After all, if rumors spread in other countries that Lady Arn is a master of the sword, the Duchess will think that her daughter herself is preventing her marriage. The young man was upset that he would not be able to meet the swordmaster, but something made him smile. Cassian noticed that his adorable stray cat had been caught by the Duchess. The emperor invited the Duke to return to the subject of marriage, namely a marriage between their countries, and asked if he liked any girl. In reality, this banquet was held so that Sir Cassian would find a suitable party for himself, which would help to establish harmony between the Western and Northern empires. The status of the girl was not important for the Duke. He wanted her to be interesting. The young man remembered how that girl had left him her badge and promised to repay her help later. He took out this badge, showed it to the emperor, and said that it belonged to the girl he wanted to marry. The emperor was shocked by this news, because it was the coat of arms of the House of Arna, the pinnacle of the Western Empire's military power, a savior hero respected by everyone, and the head of the Golden Dragon Order. Arna Brilt was just such a person. Arna is the most respected swordsman. But at home, she is just a naughty daughter who refuses to marry anyone for the sake of her mother's happiness. When the Duchess started the subject of marriage again, the girl saw only the window behind her and thought that she could jump out of it. Her mother suggested that she marry Ariel, a count of a neighboring empire. But Arna did not want to leave her empire and abandon her army, and the Duchess reminded her that all the boys here were afraid of her, because she had beaten many of them. Moreover, the Emperor has already found a groom for her. Mummy told Arna that he was the Duke of Ternugent of the Northern Empire, the first handsome man in his empire. But the girl did not want to marry a stranger. The Duchess recalled that the boys who knew her would not agree to marry her. The mother asked Arna to at least meet him and talk. She wanted her daughter to be happy with her husband, so she hoped Cassian would like her. The mother added that the Duke is a real handsome man. For 2 weeks the Duchess persuaded her daughter to meet with the Duke, and she finally gave up. And now the day of inspections has come. Arna was very worried because she was saying goodbye to her freedom. Duchess Rosalia informed her daughter that the Duke of Ternugent had already arrived. Arna thought that she could make him change his mind about marrying her. The mother brought Arna to the reception room of the Emperor and told her that the examinations would take place in this hall. Then, she added that the father and the Emperor would be coming soon. The girl thought that it would be just suicide to arrange what she had planned here. Therefore, when she saw the window, she realized that she had no other way out. Going downstairs, Arna saw a carriage near the castle and jumped into it. There was a guy sitting there who said that they met a stray cat again. Lady Arna asked the young man to go somewhere from here, and the Duke said she looked like she was trying to escape from an unwanted marriage. Cassian offered the girl to use it if she needed it. Arna did not understand why this boy kept saving her, whether he needed something from her. The young man himself said that he did not need anything from her, so that she would not worry. The girl thought that he seemed to be reading her thoughts, and decided to accept his help. The lady asked the Duke to pretend to be her boyfriend for a day. He replied that he would consider it an honor. Then Lady Arna asked where they were going. The Duke said they were going on a date. The girl was surprised, and the young man replied that she herself asked him to pretend to be her boyfriend, so everyone should see them together. Arna thought it would be good if the news about her boyfriend got out. Then the engagement would definitely be called off. She gladly accepted the Duke's offer. The couple had a very nice time. When they ate in a cafe, people noticed them and talked about them. The boy asked Arna if she wanted everyone to know about them sooner. She did not answer, but the Duke wiped the dessert from her face with his hand and put it in his mouth. He said it was the fastest way to tell everyone they were a couple. As Duke Cassian escorted Lady Arna home, she thanked him and told him that she still owed a debt, and that she was satisfied that the marriage would be over. The young man asked why she was so uncomfortable with the topic of marriage, because she said that she had not even seen her fiancé. The girl replied that it was just a whim of her parents. Arna's older married sister told her that probably the Duke from the Northern Empire was already married, or maybe he wanted to cover up his trips to mistresses by marrying her. Therefore, Lady Arna told the Duke that her fiancé was definitely out of his mind if he agreed to marry her. She also did not like the idea of having to leave her native empire. Cassian was a little offended because no one had ever said as much bad to him as he had heard from her. But he smiled and wished the girl to cope with everything. Rumors that Lady Arna had a young man and a handsome boy spread across the empire with the speed of light. The girl was sure that the engagement would be cancelled. However, her mother, Duchess Rosalia, praised her for having the courage to date someone else since her own engagement. Arna was surprised by this, but then her mother shocked her even more. She said that she loves her daughter so much that she does not mind if she marries the man she loves. The Duchess added that the Duke of Ternugent was so wonderful because he said that these rumors about her fiancé did not bother him at all. The mother begged her daughter to choose someone and marry him. But in despair, Arna shouted that she did not want to get married. Then the Duchess said, 3 months. She offered Arna to live with her husband in marriage for 3 months. If during this time he is not observed by her, then she can return to her parents. But she must be polite and calm. This is the only condition. After these 3 months, her mother promised never to talk to her about marriage again. The girl thought she could last 3 months. The Duchess reminded that there should be no fights and no murders. This is how Arna's marriage was concluded. The news of Lady Arna's upcoming quick marriage literally shook the entire Western Empire. The knights were worried that the empire would lose its military power with it, and the emperor answered them that he was going to give Lady Arna the title of Princess of the Western Empire, and they still didn't want to let her go. At that time, this union was also discussed in the Northern Empire. The son of the emperor, second in line to the throne, who took the first place among the most enviable brides of the empire. The dream of every young woman in the Northern Empire to be with the Duke of Ternugent simply dissolved into thin air. The girls were outraged by this news. The news of the Duke's marriage made a lot of noise, but Cassian was calm. He asked his assistant if he had found out anything new. The Duke remembered how nervous the Emperor had become when he asked about the swordmaster. The aide said he had heard that Duke Brilt had a problem child, and the whole problem is that it is impossible to dig up anything about the Duke, because this troubled child can beat him half to death if he hears anything. Cassian was very surprised that Arna and such a cruel person came from the same family. The assistant announced that the airship had arrived and it was time for them to leave. Herzog imagined how surprised the girl would be when they met again. At this time, the nanny informed Lady Arnie that the airship was about to land. The nanny really asked Arna not to kill her fiancé if she didn't like him. She reminded that a lady should speak in a sweet voice, be elegant and graceful. When they went out into the yard to greet the guest, Arna's mouth opened wide in surprise. Before her stood he, Duke Cassian of Ternugent. He smiled and greeted the lady. Then the girl realized that he was the same Duke with whom she was supposed to meet when she jumped into someone else's carriage. Lady Arnie was about to leave, but the Duke stopped her and reminded her of her debt to him. The girl became angry, and the nanny, seeing this, shouted to the Duke to be careful. Arna looked at the nurse and she said, "Our lady is very weak. Handle her carefully like a fragile crystal," and cried. The girl did not understand what was happening. The two maids looked everywhere for Lady Arna and were worried that she had gone out alone in this heat. And she looked at them, sitting high on a tree. Cassian saw his bride from the window of his room and smiled. Not understanding how she got in there, he thought that he had found a cute stray cat, not a wife. The girl felt that someone noticed her and decided to climb down from the tree to the ground. She hid behind a tree and when the maids left said, "Phew, they didn't notice." "Did you not notice what?" Duke Cassian, who was standing behind the girl, asked her. Arna got scared and a little later asked the young man how long he had been standing here. Cassian didn't answer, but asked if she liked him so much that she was looking at him without blinking. And the lady for some reason agreed with him. The boy thought that teasing her was a pleasure, and he asked how it was to meet his husband involuntarily. Arna answered him that it was not so bad. She thought she hadn't seen any bad traits in him yet, and wondered if she could ask him if he had any. Arna simply remembered her sister's words. The Duke asked the lady why she was looking at him and thinking about something completely different. The girl replied that they were not yet married to him, so that she would report to him. Then Cassian took her by the hands and said that this could easily be changed, and that she would not go anywhere from him. He kissed her hand and said it was too late to run. Ternugent Castle was full of noise, and there was only one reason for that: the wedding ceremony of the owner of the castle, Duke Cassian. 2 maids and a nanny helped Lady Arna prepare for the ceremony. The nanny cried that the Duchess could not see her adult daughter in a wedding dress. Arna reminded the nanny that her mother could see everything through the magic sphere on her desk. From the sphere, the Duchess informed her daughter that the Emperor would personally attend the ceremony. The girl was upset, because she understood that after such a ceremony it would not be easy for her to break the marriage with the Duke after 3 months, as they had agreed with her mother. The maids finished the preparations and, covering her head and eyes with a veil, Arna approached the mirror. She still could not believe that she was getting married, even without love. But remembering her mother's happy face, the girl thought that she would do it at least for her. Meanwhile, the other ladies were waiting to see her. Everyone discussed what she imagined herself to be if the Duke fell in love with her at first sight. Cassian's assistant was generally unhappy with this wedding. When the announcement was made in the hall to congratulate the bride and groom, the people finally saw the Duke's chosen one. Those around her were delighted with how beautiful she was. They approached the priest, who first asked the bride if she vowed to always love the groom in sorrow and joy, in wealth and poverty, in sickness and in health. "Always. Is it possible to make a false oath?" thought the girl, and nevertheless said, "I swear." When the groom said, "I swear," they had to seal their vows with a kiss. Arna didn't like the idea very much, and Cassian suggested that she run away. But the girl replied that it was too late, and the Duke pressed her to him and kissed her deeply. After that, the priest pronounced them husband and wife. Ternugent Castle was full of enthusiastic voices, and Arna could not forget this kiss all evening. The maids escorted Lady Arna to the Duke's lounge. She was so tired that she wanted to just lie down, but then she remembered that now they would have their first wedding night. Arna decided that she had to escape through the window, because she did not want to be known for having killed her husband on their first wedding night. The girl opened the window and was already thinking about how she would jump and where she would land. But behind Arna, she heard Cassian's voice asking what she was doing. The Duke asked his wife if she wanted to commit suicide. Arna was scared. He thought that he could have died by jumping from here. Cassian offered his hand to the lady to climb down from the window and asked her not to neglect herself any longer. He remembered that the girl's nanny asked to protect her. Even then, the young man understood that he had to be careful with her. But he had no idea that her relatives had brought her to such a state and the desire to kill herself. The Duke took Arna in his arms and carried him to bed. The girl closed her eyes and prepared for what she did not want to do. But Cassian put her to bed, covered her with a blanket and wished her good dreams. Arna did not know if it was possible to take it so easily and fall asleep on the first wedding night. Cassian kissed her forehead and told her not to worry and to go to sleep. When the Duke left the room, the girl was lying in bed and did not understand anything. Everything was as she wanted, but she had a strange feeling that he was treating her like a child. For aristocrats, marriage was a kind of simple tool. The union, which has only one goal, family well-being, was an everyday thing. Therefore, many thought that the marriage of the Grand Duke of Ternugent would be like that, until they saw them at the wedding and the way he looked at the bride. The absence of the new wife at the banquet, caused by the excessive care of the servants, gave rise to various rumors that the Duke does not allow any of the men to speak to her. Although in reality, Duke Cassian did not know what to do with the fact that his bride wanted to commit suicide on their first wedding night. Duke Alan's aide handed Sir Cassian an envelope and said it was an invitation from the second prince. Alain asked when the Duke planned to meet the Emperor, and he said soon. Lady Arna sat in the garden drinking tea and talking to her mother through the magic sphere. Mother informed Arna that her subordinates were rebelling. The Knights of the Golden Order went on strike to get her back. Contact with some of them has already been lost and the Emperor is terribly upset. The maid called Lady Arna to look at the presents His Grace had sent her. The mother from the sphere said it was very romantic, but the girl thought that it was because of what happened yesterday. Perhaps the Duke imagined that she was trying to kill herself, and thus tries to support her. Suddenly, Arna saw someone in the bushes. When the maids left, the boy introduced himself and, smiling, waved to the lady. She was very indignant that he came here. This is the knight that should be in the Western Empire right now. She specifically did not invite him to the wedding, so that no one would suspect that she was a knight herself. Arna thought about how to get Crave out of here without anyone noticing. She got up from the table and took a step forward. Due to the fact that she was not used to walking in dresses, her leg caught on the dress and she almost fell. Duke Cassian picked her up in time. He asked his new wife if she liked his gifts. The guy understood that she had not watched them yet and that she was not very interested in it. Duchess Rosalia's voice was heard from the sphere. She greeted Duke Cassian and showered him with many compliments, and he complimented her as well. Arna turned off the sphere and asked the Duke why he had come. Cassian asked if she was feeling better. The girl was convinced that it was because of yesterday's incident. Sir Cassian sadly asked if her marriage to him was so intolerable for her. Arna realized that her antics had gone too far, and that everything needed to be corrected. The girl replied to her husband that everything is fine with her, and he should not worry about her. Cassian then invited her to open up to him later. He was about to leave, but Arna decided to tell him the truth. The girl grabbed his hand and said that she was just scared on the first wedding night. Cassian smiled and said he didn't know his wife was so cute. He promised not to touch her until she wanted to. Arna couldn't believe it, and Cassian said it would be their secret. How then, during their acquaintance, he again offered her his help. It seemed to the girl that the quality of his proposals was cloudy. She decided that it was necessary to find out what kind of person he was and what he was capable of. However, Arna agreed with him. In his office, Cassian mused that Arna didn't seem like the kind of lady who would be scared of something like her wedding night. He told his assistant that they had a rat and they had to kill it. The head maid scolded the servants for not saving Duchess Arna's magic sphere after finding the sphere broken. One of the maids mentioned that there was a protective spell placed on the sphere, and an ordinary person cannot break it. In fact, it was Arna herself who did it, while no one saw. Another maid admitted that it was her fault because she was supposed to be watching the sphere. She cried and apologized. bowing her head to the headmaid. And the headmaid said that the girl will not pay for this field, even if she works for free for 10 years. She burst into tears uncontrollably. Lady Arna, observing what was happening in the garden, called her nurse to her. She asked Eva if she knew what would happen to that girl now. Eva replied that she would be kicked out immediately for breaking such a priceless thing. Of course, she will have to pay off the debt, but no one will hire her now. Arna understood that it was time for her to intervene in that scandal, because she herself broke her magic sphere. The senior maid said that the lady should not interfere in such a matter. But Lady Arna replied that she must know what was going on in her castle. The nanny cried with happiness after such words, because she thought that the lady would not get used to it so quickly in someone else's house. Duchess Arna informed all the maids that she was aware that the sphere was broken. She added that everything was fine and suggested that they go about their business. The head maid asked if they could leave everything as it was and not punish anyone. Lady Arna replied that all people have the right to make mistakes. The rescued girl cried and thanked her mistress for such kindness. She promised Lady Arna to be her faithful until the end of her days. Arna reassured her that everything was fine. But the maid was still sobbing and saying it was her fault. Eve then brought a box with a new sphere and informed them that she had specially bought several spheres at the same time. Arna herself did not understand why she arranged it then. Meanwhile, the head maid reported everything to the Duke's assistant, who was in Duke Cassian's office. Herzog heard about this situation and smiled, saying about himself, "I didn't think that you would deal with such a thing." Cassian got up from the desk with the papers and headed for the door. His assistant Alan asked the Duke where he was going, and he replied that he was going to see his wife. Alan told the maid that the master had never been distracted from work before. Lady Arna tried to hide in the garden from the bored, grateful maid. Suddenly, in the bushes, she noticed Crave, disguised as a maid. The girl got angry with him, and the guy admitted that his place was next to her. Crave recalled how she had saved him, and that his loyalty to her was stronger than death. He added that he had sworn allegiance to the Emperor, but the only person he would follow was her, his commander. The knight was jealous of Lady Arna for her new husband. The Duchess wanted to leave, but Crave blocked her way and reminded her of her vow to always be with them. He asked why she had traded them for the Duke. Lady Arnie told him to shut his mouth and go home. The girl said that her uncle Sarno would be leaving soon, so she would be able to take him to the Western Empire. The boy begged to take him at least as a maid, but Arna asked him not to carry nonsense. Suddenly, they noticed Sir Cassian coming out to meet them. The Duke asked his wife how she was doing, and the master also asked what kind of maid this was, because he had not seen her in his castle before. Arna was surprised that her husband had actually taken Crave as a maid, and replied that she had come with her from the Western Empire. Cassian replied that he now understood everything. The girl noticed that the Duke was not as cheerful as before, and asked if he was not angry. Cassian asked if she had had a secret conversation with this maid. Lady Arnie replied that there was no such thing. Then the Duke looked at her eyes and said they were beautiful. The girl replied that people are afraid of her red eyes. Since childhood, Arna was afraid to look into each other's eyes. It was said that this is a family curse and that only one child is born with it for an entire generation. She admitted that her grandfather and uncle were red-eyed swordmasters. Cassian asked if her uncle was the same famous hero. Everyone has heard about the hero who caught the terrible dragon that woke up 30 years ago. He was also famous for ending the war with the Eastern Alliance a decade earlier. The girl confirmed this, but everything was not quite so. Her uncle was indeed nicknamed the Dragon Slayer, but she was the one who ended the war with the Eastern Alliance. Cassian returned to his business at the castle. He decided that he would deal with that strange maid later. After all, judging by Lady Arne's reaction, everything is fine. It had been 2 days since Crave had walked around the castle dressed as a maid. Arna did not understand how no one had calculated it yet. The girl asked him to tell her what happened there. Crave said that the Knights of the Golden Order went on strike after she left. And also, he told how he saw Ergen, who wrote a statement about his dismissal. Arna was upset and thought that it would be better if they knew that this marriage was only for 3 months. Crave saw the maid following them down the hall, now pestering Lady Arna. He opened the door and told her that the lady had already chosen her favorite maid. The girl ran away with tears in her eyes, and Arna decided to get rid of Crave and send him home with Uncle Sarno. The next morning, while the lady was sitting in the garden, the maid brought her tea under cover. Arna was already mad at Crave for being around all the time. The young man offered to accompany her to the capital. All married aristocrats had to go through one procedure, namely the emperor's approval. This was the method of regulating disputes, if such arose, and even the announcement by the emperor of the inheritance rights of aristocrats' property. In modern terms, it was just a formal introduction to a higher authority. 3 servants, led by the headmaid, approached Lady Arna. They wanted to discuss with the lady that she had a favorite maid. Lady Arna reassured them that she liked all the servants equally, so that they would not quarrel. A few days passed, and the day of Arna's departure to the capital came. Cassian kissed his wife's hand and told her not to worry. The Duke promised to join her in the capital when he finished his business here. The man kissed Arna and said that it would help her not to miss him on the road. Knight Crave was riding behind Duke Sarno on horseback. It was Arna's first time riding in a carriage instead of a horse, so she was a little bored. But she remembered that kiss. Then the girl thought that she was simply not used to driving in comfort. That's why strange thoughts were creeping into her head. Suddenly, her maid shouted that they were attacked. Sir Crave gave orders to protect the carriage and cover Duke Sarno and Lady Arn. The girl did not think that this could happen with her arrival in the Northern Empire. Cassian was playing chess in his study and had a bad feeling about something. And the Duke was informed that his wife had been attacked, and he immediately went there. Lady Arnie apologized to her maid for trying to protect her and got out of the carriage. She was shouted at that it was very dangerous, but she said that it would be quick. Arna took out her sword and dealt with the attackers. Crave recognized this unusual sword. It was one of the 2 legendary swords of the Luilgos clan, Nevermore, the Devourer of Souls. The girl used this sword to kill all the attackers because they saw who was wielding this sword. Crave said that at least one of them had to be left alive. Then they would be able to find out who is giving them orders. And Lady Arna replied that those who organized it would come to her themselves if they wanted to. Duke Cassian dismounted and asked his wife if she was all right. He was worried that she might be kidnapped. The young man approached Arna and held her tightly to him. Cassian said that he had his men attached to her for surveillance, which is why he had come here so quickly. He saw blood on her face and asked Arna if she was injured. She replied that she was fine. Then the Duke saw a pile of slain and asked whose hands it was. Arna understood that she could not betray herself. Uncle Sarno told Cassian that he would explain everything. He approached Crave and said that he was the one who saved Lady Arna, who was being kidnapped. At this time, in the capital of the Northern Empire, people on the street were discussing Duke Cassian's wedding. It was said that he fell in love with Lady Arna at first sight. Everyone was surprised that the Duke had married a lady from the Northern Empire, and Lady Haley was left alone. They also wondered how the Emperor would react to this marriage. Duke Cassian brought his wife to the estate of the county of Ternugan. They were met by a butler who offered Lady Arna a tour of the estate and its surroundings. Meanwhile, in the imperial palace of the Northern Empire, Uncle Sarno was sitting in the guest room and waiting for the Emperor's reception. He recalled the attack that had taken place a few hours before. When he told the Duke that these were no ordinary attackers, he replied that he already knew whose hands it was. Cassian, putting his hand on his shoulder, promised not to make a fuss because for him Arna's safety is the most important thing. Her uncle wondered if he had done the right thing. He was worried about the girl and wondered if she would be in danger with the Duke of Ternugent. Isn't it all a big conspiracy and she is the victim? Then the man smiled and thought that it was silly to worry about Arna, who could kill anyone and run away. It is only necessary to wish her to be patient in family life. Sir Sarno was approached by the Emperor's aide and told that His Majesty had accepted his request for an audience and was asking to go to see him. Then the guest showed the assistant to the mountain of gifts and said that it was all for the Emperor. Uncle Sarno wanted the Emperor to treat Arna as well as possible. When Lady Arna, after a long excursion, had at last reached her room and was lying down for a little rest, Sir Crave knocked at her door. Again, he insisted on being by her side. The girl asked why he didn't change into a maid and then said she was joking. Crave told Lady Arnie that her husband was handsome and caring and asked why he married her. The lady replied that she herself was interested in knowing the answer to this question. Suddenly, Duke Cassian knocked on his wife's room and asked if he could enter. Crave didn't know where to hide, but Arna learned him. When the Duke entered the room, Lady Arna told her husband that Sir Crave had come to her to deliver a message from Uncle Sarno. Then she asked what brought him to her. Cassian admitted that he missed her. Arna blushed at his unexpected confession. The nanny called the lady to take a bath because she had just heated the water for bathing. Lady Arna apologized to the Duke and went about her business. When they were alone, Cassian asked Sir Crave to stay for a moment. The guy got nervous because he decided that his disguise was revealed by the maid. The Duke asked the young man who he really was. Cassian added that he was only interested in two things: his personality and his relationship with Arna. Crave replied that they were quite close, but it was difficult to explain. And he added that he had come here because he was worried about her safety, being away from Lady Arna. Duke Cassian then asked Sir Crave directly if he was a swordsman. The boy replied that it was not so, but the Duke knew that only a master swordsman could handle all the attackers. Crave thought that this was indeed the case, so his commander dealt with it. And the Duke assumed that he went after his niece because he was very worried about her. Cassian smiled and said he was happy to welcome him to the Northern Empire. He shook Crave's hand and offered to make himself at home here. The boy told Lady Arna that the Duke had taken him for her uncle. Arna was not happy with such news, but said that he really looked like Uncle Gerhan. The girl said that her uncle had a sword more famous than himself, the dragon sword, Levithine, and there is only one sword that can replace it, the Evermore sword. Arna took out the sword Evermore and told about it. It was the exact opposite of Nevermore's sword. Born of light, he leads a lost soul to the Hall of Valor. The lady asked her sword Evermore to do for her what only he could do, to pretend to be Levithane and stay with Crave for a while. The knight bowed to the sword and promised to treat it with care and to wipe its blade well. The sword agreed to serve the new master, and Arna was satisfied. Cassian approached his wife in the garden and embraced her. He noticed that she was no longer afraid to look into his eyes. Her heart was beating very fast for some reason. Arna told her husband that it was time for them to go so as not to be late. When they got to the palace, the girl was in awe of its grandeur, and the Duke thought she was cute. A butler met them and informed them that the Emperor was not feeling well, so they would have to wait. Arna and Cassian had no choice but to wait in the living room. At this time, His Majesty was quarreling with Crown Prince Edward, because he did not know where the second Prince Mackenzie was now. Edward was very angry with the Emperor, and when the butler announced that the Duke of Ternugent had arrived at the palace, he rejoiced. The boy was happy to see Cassian, especially since he had recently gotten married and he was unable to attend the wedding due to illness. Cassian and Arna sat in the living room and waited for the Emperor. The Duke pondered why the Emperor was unwell. He knew what was really wrong with him. The Emperor had most likely sent men to attack Lady Arna's carriage, but thanks to the swordsman, she had survived. And now he takes out his anger on the Crown Prince. After 4 hours of waiting, Lady Arnie asked her husband when they would be able to see the Emperor. Cassian invited her to take a walk in the garden. Arna went for a walk in the garden where it was very beautiful, but the trees were too small for her. The girl liked tall trees so that she could climb them and hide from the heat. Suddenly, someone sneaked up behind her. The girl got scared and hit him. Seeing her face, the boy said that she was an angel and asked how she ended up here. Edward asked if he could find out the name of the beautiful girl who looked like an angel. Arna did not want to answer because she had no idea who was in front of her. The prince thought that the girl was pretending not to know him specifically to arouse his interest, but the young man did not understand why she did not say her name. Then he was called and Edward turned away for a second. But when he returned, he did not find the girl in the garden. Meanwhile, Cassian was waiting for her in the living room. The butler approached Duke Cassian and told him that Prince Edward wanted to see him. The Duke decided that he would meet with him, since he had already arrived. The Emperor's aide warned the Duke that recently there had been many cases of attacks on high society ladies. Count Tessalaka gathers information, but things are not so simple. The aide told the Duke that the Earl needed his help. At that moment, Prince Edward ran into the living room. Cassian asked why he was so excited. The prince, breathing a little, replied that he had found the ideal he had been looking for so long. He told that this girl is just an angel, and that he met her in the garden. Edward was sure it was love at first sight. Cassian asked who this lady was who had captured his heart. The prince replied that he did not have time to ask her name. The guy admitted that he was distracted for a second and she disappeared like a mirage. But there is one feature in her appearance by which he will be able to find her quickly. The Duke asked what was so special about this lady. The prince replied that she had dazzling silver hair and bright red eyes. At that moment, Arna entered the room and he saw her. Edward said it was the same angel he had met. He believed that it was fate because they met again. Cassian put his arm around Arna's waist and told Prince Edward that he had forgotten to introduce his wife, Duchess Arna, Ternugan's new mistress. Edward could not believe that his angel turned out to be the wife of his cousin Cassian. But the boy greeted the Duchess, bowing to her. The next day, as Arna rested in her garden, she saw Sir Crave surrounded by maids and questioned about rescuing Lady Arna. They called him a hero, and one of the maids said that she had already seen him somewhere. It was the same girl he chased away while dressed as a maid. Lady Arnie indicated that he would be finished if anyone found out about his disguise. Crave replied to the girl that they could see each other in the Emperor's palace. In 10 days there will be a ball in the Imperial Castle. Cassian asked Arna how preparations for the ball were going. The girl replied that she would choose a dress from those she had. Her nanny Eve was indignant because she did not teach her lady like that. She reminded what a terrible place this highest society is. Thus, she risks becoming a laughingstock among aristocrats. Eva said that she would now contact the Duchess to prepare a dress for her. But Cassian objected and offered them his help. Lady Agatha came to Arnie at Cassian's request. She said that she was also called Gatha or Marquise. Arna was surprised that she somehow smelled like her mother. From the magical sphere came the voice of Duchess Rosalia, who greeted Marquise Agatha, admiring her and the fact that such a famous person would teach her daughter. Lady Agatha told the Duchess that she too would be honored to teach such a beautiful lady. Arna's mother told the Marquise that her daughter had a lot to learn. Marquise Agatha began Arna's training with greetings in the Northern Empire. Then she told the girl about her status. Because Lady Arnie is a princess of the Western Empire, as the wife of a duke, she becomes a member of the imperial family, and thus, she will not have to bow her head to anyone in this empire. But, of course, except for the Emperor and Empress. Lady Agatha also told her a little about Emperor Joseph. He has 3 children, all from different mothers, 2 sons and 1 daughter. The late former Empress gave birth to the first Prince Edward, and the maid gave birth to the second prince, Mackenzie, and from the current Empress Fulcaria, Princess Silcia. The princess is 6 years old, and the relationship between the princes is now very strained. Even the aristocrats split into 2 camps depending on which prince they supported. Arna asked Madame Agatha if the first prince was the heir to the throne. Agatha replied that it was, but there was some controversy about his candidacy. Madame did not want to tell the details and changed the subject to a question about her outfit for the ball. The girl replied that she wanted to wear one of her dresses. Lady Agatha smiled and remembered that Cassian had warned her of this, and said that the largest salon in the capital had already begun making her exclusive dress. In the evening, Cassian came to his wife's room and asked her to go to the same place with him. He took her to the roof and showed her shooting stars. Herzog said that as a child he used to come here and admire the night sky. The girl was delighted to watch the stars, and Cassian could not take his eyes off her. On the day of the ball, everyone discussed the fact that it was simply impossible to contact famous designers, since the Duke had ordered clothes for his wife. Everyone fell silent in the hall when the Duke and Duchess of Ternugan entered. The girls talked about how they had never seen such an elegant black dress before. At this time, Arna wanted to take off this uncomfortable dress. The man asked her to be patient and not to be nervous, because in this hall she would not have to bow her head to anyone. Cassian told his wife that the Marquise of Given was his godmother, and asked why she had taught her. Arna could not tell about the division of the imperial family, so she said that Lady Agatha had taught her to salute. Then the Duke showed her some aristocrats and their wives and told her a little about them. Arna asked her husband if she could have a friendly relationship with someone, or if her title made it impossible. Cassian replied that she understood correctly, but the Duke added that she can choose who to be friends with and who to keep at a distance. Arna asked her husband why the Emperor was not seen again today. Cassian did not think that the Emperor would do this again. He replied to his wife that the Emperor would not appear today. The girl was surprised because they were supposed to meet. Arna asked if he was avoiding them because they had to say hello to him. The Duke was about to reply, but was summoned by Sir Tessalaka for an urgent conversation. The girl said that everything is fine and he can go, and for now she will see who she should make friends with and who she should stay away from. Cassian said he would be back soon. Meanwhile, Prince Edward's assistant was urging him to go to the ball, but the prince said he didn't care. The aide reminded that the Emperor would be angry with him. The prince said that he didn't care about that either. He thought only of Arna and how he would see her again. Therefore, when the assistant said that the Duke was with his wife at the ball, he quickly gathered himself. Edward thought that since Arna was at the ball, he couldn't miss it either. It was announced in the hall that His Highness the Crown Prince had arrived at the ball. The prince immediately found Lady Arna and was also glad that she was alone without his brother. He said hello, and she recognized him and called him by name. Then Edward thought she liked him too, once she remembered his name. But it seemed to him that she was happy to see him, and he decided to act. Prince Edward asked Lady Arnie to go out on the terrace with him so that they could talk quietly. The girl wondered what he wanted to talk about. He began by asking if Arna knew what love was. The prince said that love is a sincere feeling and he loves her despite the fact that she has a husband and he has a bride. Edward admitted that after their first meeting, he couldn't think about anyone else but her. Arna reminded him that she was married, and also to his brother. The prince replied that true love is usually met after marriage. Lady Arna asked if he was suggesting that she betray her husband. The guy said that it is so, adding that marriage is arranged and love is due to betrayal. Arna shook her head at how logically he explained some nonsense. The prince took Lady Arnie by the hand and asked if she agreed to experience true love with him. And Edward also suggested that she divorce her husband for his sake. After this proposal, Arna cut down Prince Edward and left him lying on the terrace, while she herself went to find Cassian, who was with Sir Tessalaka at the time. Sir said that the lady was kidnapped and there is no evidence or similar signs with other victims. They increased the number of guards, but it is useless. Tessalaka told Cassian that this had to be dealt with as soon as possible, before more casualties occurred. But the Duke did not hear him, and said that they would discuss it later. Cassian thought only about why Arna had gone to the terrace with Edward. He knew that the prince had feelings for her, but he did not understand why she went with him. Leaving the hall, the Duke met his wife and asked her where she was. Arna answered that she was on the terrace. Cassian asked if she had been there herself. The girl did not know whether she should tell him everything, because she did not want to quarrel with her husband. Arna replied that she would tell something, but asked not to be surprised. The young man promised to listen to her calmly. Arna then said that his cousin needed mental help because he had just confessed his love to her. And the girl also told about the fact that he believes that true love can be known through betrayal. Arna asked if it was not bad for the country to have such an emperor. Cassian listened to her seriously, then laughed, and the girl did not understand why he was having so much fun if his country was in danger with such a future emperor. In the morning, when Lady Arna told everything to Sir Crave, he could not believe that the prince could say such a terrible thing. He asked if the lady had killed him for such a thing. Arna replied that she simply stunned him for a while. Crave said that he had heard that the prince was ill. That's probably because of that. The maids again admired Sir Crave and his courage, and they fell in love with him. Only Erica did not like all this. He seemed suspicious to her. Maid Erica approached Madame Arna and asked to speak to her alone without Sir Crave. The young man was frightened because he thought that she had exposed his disguise after all. And the girl told Lady Arna that her knight was behaving rather strangely, and it seems to her that he is in love with the lady, because this knight follows her like a man possessed. Lady Arnie thanked the maid for her concern and care, but she added that she and Sir Crave had known each other for a long time, so she asked her not to worry about her. Emperor Joseph was furious. He was informed that out of 101 people all died. The reason is unknown, the plan failed. He sent there the strongest. An aide gave him some sedative liquid and the emperor drank it. Joseph could not believe what had happened, but he knew that Cassian had something to do with it, and he also didn't like the fact that he rejected the bride he proposed to him, and married a girl from the damn Western Empire. But he also married on the advice of Cyclone Fafor, whom the emperor could not stand. And since they concluded an agreement on trade relations, it is impossible to approach them now. Joseph reflected on the fact that Cassian should have been removed while he was not in the way. But he behaved so quietly that the emperor forgot about his existence. The emperor decided to calm down, because he still had one chance. He thought that it was necessary to remove the Duchess and then Cassian would be alone again. The aide informed His Highness of what had happened to Prince Edward. The emperor was beside himself with rage. He ordered to call the Duchess. Duchess Arna sat in the carriage with her nanny. 3 days before, she had received an invitation to a tea party at the estate of the Marquis of Melazino. The girl really didn't want to go there, but the nanny reminded her how important it is to experience such tea parties and appear in secular society. When they arrived, the hostess met Lady Arna and greeted her with a smile. Lady Melazino politely showed Arna to her place at the table she had chosen especially for her. But in reality, everything was not so good. At the table, all the other ladies were specially talking to each other in such a way that she did not understand anything, and that made her uncomfortable. But Arnie was enjoying the delicious cake without even paying attention to them. They then discussed Lady Haley, who had become ill over the Duke's wedding. After all, Lady Haley liked the Duke so much that she even fainted from such news. One lady specifically added that all high society knew about it, but Arna did not listen to them, because she liked the dessert so much that she thought only of him. Then the girl decided that something should be said. Lady Arna smiled and told the girls that they were having quite an interesting conversation. Then the ladies decided to communicate only in pairs and whispers, and Arna sat alone and in complete silence. But Arna decided that they were so nice because they didn't ask her about anything, because they understood that she felt insecure in the new society. The butler informed Duke Cassian that Duchess Arna had gone to tea with the Marquise Melazino. The young man remembered that she wanted to make friends with someone. His assistant Alan's voice rang out from the magic orb. He said that the Duke's guesses about the attack were correct because all the evidence had disappeared. The aide asked whether to continue the investigation. The Duke ordered him to be given an order to investigate the case and to return himself, because he needed him. Cassian remembered that the wife of the Marquise of Melazino was in the retinue of the Empress and was constantly in conflict with his godmother, the Marquise of Guyenne. It did not give him peace. The Duke decided that the Marquise had specifically called his wife to mock her. The butler asked the Duke where he was going, and he replied that he was going to the battlefield. When Cassian arrived for his wife, all the ladies gasped. They rarely got to see his beaming smile. Arna thought her husband was very attractive. Then she scolded herself for such thoughts, because she still counted on the fact that she would return home in 3 months. Cassian thought that Arna was a little tired. Marquise Melazino greeted Duke Cassian and said that she did not expect him to come in person to fetch his wife. Cassian then hugged Arna, which embarrassed the girl. The Duke asked Lady Melazino to take care of his wife in the future, because she is very shy. The other ladies envied Arna because her husband was so caring. As they rode in the carriage, Cassian looked at Arna and thought about what she had been through at this tea party. He believed that Arna is his precious horse. If Arna hadn't been a duchess, Joseph would have been watching him long ago. And since she is a princess of the Western Empire, the emperor cannot do as he pleases. Cassian asked the girl how the tea party went. Arna replied that it was quite fun. The cake was very tasty and the ladies were very kind. The young man was surprised to hear about this, and even questioned her. Arna said that they did not specifically bother her to taste the dessert, and talked among themselves. The girl was so tired when she got home that she decided not to go anywhere else. But in the morning, the nanny informed her that the Empress had sent her an invitation to dinner. Arna understood that the Empress had specially sent the invitation in the morning, so that there would be no time for reflection, and she had come to dinner herself, instead of sending a reply. Nanny was worried that she and Crave wouldn't be able to enter the imperial palace with her, because they were citizens of the Western Empire. Eva asked Arna to be very careful there because she had a bad feeling. Arna did not like all this, but this was her 3rd visit to the imperial palace. Lady Arnie arrived at the palace with her maid Erica, who swore her lifelong loyalty. But the palace maid informed them that the Empress was not yet ready to receive them. Arna understood that all this was done on purpose, because they arrived on time and not too early. The Duchess asked how long they would have to wait. The maid replied that not very long. Then Lady Arna said they would wait right here in the corridor. Erica thought that the Empress had treated the Duchess badly. Arna stood still and remembered how she stood guard. Usually she had to stand for 12 hours, but now it wasn't even an hour, so she was smiling. The Empress was furious when she found out that Duchess Arna had been standing in the corridor for an hour. She expected that the Duchess would make a scandal because of such a cold reception, and then she could be punished for it. But Arna just quietly waited for the meeting. Empress Valkyria decided that she would not be idle for long anyway. Another 3 hours passed and Arna was still standing. The maid told the Empress that it might harm her. Rumors will spread that the Duchess was called to the palace for no reason. However, if the Duke of Turnagensky finds out about this, it is not known how he will act then. Empress Valkyria ordered the Duchess to be called to her. When they were called, the maid Erica was barely on her feet. But she was very happy that the Duchess had defeated the Empress in this competition. Arna, seeing the Empress, remembered what Madame Guillen had said about her. The difference between the Empress and Prince Edward was only 2 years. She seemed to her like a girl who is not afraid of anything. Arna politely greeted the Empress, and she greeted her in return, adding that she was not greeted badly, as for a foreigner. Empress Valkyria told the Duchess that she had long wanted to invite her over for a quiet chat, but she got up late so she didn't have time to get ready. Her Highness said that they were both guilty, so she suggested that they go to the garden to dine. There was a lot of delicious food on the table. The Duchess didn't even know how to taste it all. After dinner, the Empress asked if Lady Arna liked her treat, and added that people from the Western Empire probably wouldn't like it. The girl did not like that she remembered her origin in this way. Folcaria asked Arna about the tea party at Marquis Melazino's, if it was true that the Duke had personally picked her up. The Empress said she had never heard him be so considerate before. After all, he was not so nice with his former passion. Folcaria asked the Duchess if she had heard of it. The girl said that she had one question for Her Highness. The Empress was glad that she had become interested in the former Duke, but Lady Arna asked her if everyone in the Northern Empire showed such an interest in other people's personal lives. Because in the Western Empire, it is considered simply unacceptable. Arna called this phenomenon cultural difference. The Empress was enraged by this insolence and decided that she would not leave it at that. Cassian, having heard that his wife had received an invitation to dinner from the Empress and had not yet returned, decided to go to the palace at the same time. Empress Folcaria called Lady Arna to take a walk in the garden and look at the roses that were in bloom. Arna didn't like the fact that she couldn't find her maid Erica. Suddenly, the girl heard Erica's scream. The Empress's maids gave her a tray with cups of tea and ordered to take the lady away. But they put a step on her and she fell. Arna ran up to the girl, grabbed the tray with the cups and told Erica that she should be more careful. The maids were very surprised at such a quick reaction of the Duchess. The Empress became angry because they admired her. Folcaria was outraged and ordered Arna and Erica to kneel before her for causing a ruckus. Arna realized that her maids had set up a bandwagon and forced her to do things she shouldn't have done. And she guessed that the Empress had thought it up in advance. Therefore, Lady Arna told Erica that she would kneel with her, because it is the duty of a leader to follow his people. Arna told the Empress that she would kneel, but not here, but at the entrance to the palace. She liked the fact that she refused the Empress such a trifle. At the palace, he and Erica got down on their knees, and Arna thought that 10 hours would be enough. The girl remembered the times when she was studying in the order. Then she beat everyone who did not like her, and she was often ordered by putting her on her knees. She once knelt for 54 hours because of her pride. The head maid informed the Empress that Lady Arna had been on her knees for 2 hours and was smiling. Folcaria could not believe this, because she thought that the Duchess was weak. The maid said that people said that the Duchess was as weak and fragile as crystal. Empress Valkyria said that she would now go to the end. The butler blocked Prince Edward's path and said it might reach the Emperor. The prince said to him, "Get out of the way, there my beloved is in danger." A few days before, the Emperor summoned the Empress Valkyria to him. He scolded her for not doing anything about the prince's antics. The Emperor shouted that it was all because he was not her own son, but he threatened to kick her out if she did not fulfill her duties as a wife and mother. Therefore, Folcaria wanted to push the prince into a scandal by mocking the Duchess, but she did not succeed. The head maid reminded that Lady Arna had already been standing for a long time, and this can result in very bad consequences for her. She offered to let the Duchess go now and call her next time. Suddenly, a maid ran into their room. She announced that Prince Edward had arrived. Edward cried when he saw Lady Arna kneeling in front of the palace. He told the girl not to cry, although in reality Arna was not going to cry. The prince promised to talk to the Empress so that she would let her go, but someone behind him said it was unnecessary. It was Cassian who had come to fetch his wife. He held out his hand and told Arna to get up, but the girl said that then the Empress would be angry. Cassian kissed her hand and said that so be it, but her health is much more important. The head maid came running and said that Lady Arna could go, and also the Empress conveyed that she wants to see Prince Edward. Arna told Erica that she could get up. When the maid got up, they saw the terrible wounds on her knees. The Duke thought that Arna would not be able to go because she had been on her knees for too long, so he took her in his arms. The girl decided not to argue with her husband, although she could have gone. At the Ternugan estate, the doctor examined Lady Arna and informed the Duke that the Duchess's knees had numerous wounds and bruises, so she would not be able to walk properly for some time. But he said that he would have to anoint his knees with the ointment he had given to the maid, and that everything would be over in 3 days. Cassian took the ointment from Eve and went to his wife. When he entered her room, Arna was surprised to see her husband with the ointment in his hands. Cassian asked her permission to help her himself, instead of the maid. Seeing her knees, the Duke asked his wife why she did not refuse to carry out this punishment. Arna replied that she was afraid he would get in trouble because of it. Cassian bowed his head and closed his eyes. A little later he said that from tomorrow no one would dare to behave like this to his beloved wife, the Duchess of Arna. The man at the publishing house said that he would not be able to print such a dangerous article. But when the hooded man put a bag of money on his table, he agreed. Alan informed the Duke through a magic sphere that he had completed his task. Cassian smiled and said he would look forward to tomorrow morning. In the morning, people throughout the Empire read the newspapers and were outraged by the Empress's behavior towards the Duchess. Even the fact that she was from the Western Empire seemed unimportant to them. People were interested in what the Emperor would do about it. After reading the fresh newspaper, the Emperor was furious. He blamed the editors for daring to write such a thing about his family. The Emperor ordered his assistant to deal with this and close the publishing house. The assistant reported that an official document had arrived from the Western Empire. In it, the Duchess's father expresses his deep regret that his daughter was treated like this, and promises to take measures if this happens again. The Emperor understood that this was the handiwork of Cassian. He was very angry and said that he would not leave it like that and would not forgive the Duke. The mother told Arna that after reading the article, the father cried and asked to bring her home. And she also said that he had sent an official letter to the Emperor with a warning. Arna was surprised that her father attached such importance to it. Duchess Rosalia asked her daughter what her husband said about it. The girl told that he promised her that no one would dare to treat her like that again. That is exactly what he did by writing this article. The mother asked her daughter what happened between her and the Empress. Arna revealed that she wanted to use Erica to pick on herself, and if she had not intervened, then perhaps she would have been executed. Duchess Rosalia praised her daughter and said she was the best. Mother told Arna to continue in the same spirit. The girl replied that then everyone would know that she is not weak, and her mother said that she raised her to be strong and capable. The Duchess reminded her daughter that the most important thing was not to find out that she was a master of the sword, and asked where her husband was now. Arna replied that he had gone to the palace. The Emperor's assistant informed the Duke that the Emperor was furious, but this time he forgives him because the Duchess is to blame for this incident. Cassian asked if he had been denied an audience this time as well. The aide said that he would achieve nothing by provocations. The Duke replied that all methods should be tried. Realizing that he would not be able to see the Emperor, Cassian went to the Empress. He entered her room and after saying hello, took the photo from her desk. How cute Silcia is. She is very young, she only recently learned to write. It will be a shame if she finds out about what happened, said Cassian to Fulcaria. The Empress asked if he was threatening her. The Duke replied that it was only a warning of what would happen if she decided to go against him. In the Imperial Palace in the Western Empire, Emperor Cyclone IV was quite happy. Sir Sarno asked his brother why he was so pleased. The Emperor replied that the heavens themselves had helped him. The Northern Empire had blessed him, and now he wouldn't have to worry about Arna being taken away from him. Sir Sarno asked if he only allowed this marriage because he knew it would not last long. And Cyclone replied that Rosalia persuaded him. She came to him and asked him to help Arna get married. The Emperor was then surprised, but the mother asked that her daughter learn love. Although she is a knight, she remains a girl who gave her youth to protect her native country. The Emperor agreed with his sister, especially since she promised that Arna would still return in 3 months, because she would not be able to curb her wayward nature and be compliant with her husband. Madame Guillen taught Lady Arna the rudiments of dancing. She wasn't doing very well, but Marquise Agatha remembered her mother's words about Arna's rather weak health. Cassian came unexpectedly into the room to look at Arna. He asked Madame Agatha to take care of his wife, and the Duke himself approached Arna to say goodbye. The girl wished the man a good trip, and he kissed her on the forehead and said that he hoped that next time she would kiss him too. Cassian warned that he would be very late, and that Arna should go to bed without him. But for some reason the girl was worried that he was gone for so long. The shouts of the guards came from the street that someone suspicious had appeared and wounded one of the guards. The senior guard gave the order to increase the security. Arna looked out the window and thought that someone was suspicious. It could be the man standing behind her now. But she was very calm. The man put a sword to her neck, wounded her neck and asked if she was a princess of the Western Empire. But Arna remained silent and did not move. Duke Cassian was sitting in the Shillian Club in the capital. He welcomed his assistant Alan on his arrival. He informed the Duke that his escort knight had returned. Lascelles returned and most likely went to his home. As for the attack on the Duchess, it was discovered that the only witness to that event had died. Alan asked if there was a need to continue the investigation. The Duke ordered him to stop for the time being. In fact, Cassian wanted to know more about Sir Crave. That is why he was so concerned about this investigation. Alan said there was another piece of news. In the knightly order of the Emperor of the Western Empire, there was a mutiny. The swordmaster who led this order suddenly disappeared, and without their leader, the knights refused to serve and staged a strike. Cassian smiled and thought that now he had a slight chance of defeating the strongest knight. The masked man asked the girl again if she was a princess of the Western Empire. At that moment, Arna turned around and kicked him. He fell unconscious. Arna approached the attacker, pointed her sword at him and asked who he was. The man could not understand who she was. He understood that this was no ordinary young lady, because she was not at all afraid of the sword at the throat and did not even move. Arna asked who sent him. The man replied that he was not going to tell her who was giving him orders. The girl understood that after knocking him out, she would not learn anything. Crave entered her room and said he was sleeping with her. Arna mentioned that he hadn't even been training lately, and he replied that she doesn't train either. The girl replied that she can because she is the strongest. Arna asked Crave if this man was similar to those who had attacked her that time. Crave said not really. Last time there were not murderers but well-trained warriors. Arna thought that there were no idiots in the Eastern Kingdom capable of such a thing, so she thought of the Empress of the North. The Duchess told Sir Crave that the man wouldn't tell them anything more anyway, and killed him with one swing of her sword. Arna felt that there was someone else in the room. The stranger fought with Crave on swords. He saw the girl and did not understand why she was so calm. If a dead body was lying next to her. Cassian ran into the room and calmed everyone down. He introduced his personal bodyguard, Sir Lascelles, to them. The knight bowed to Lady Arna and apologized for not recognizing her. Cassian hugged his wife and said that they would sleep together tonight. Arna was scared because she wasn't ready for it yet, but it turned out that it was to keep her safe. The girl said Crave would protect her, but Cassian was against having another man with her at night. Lying on the same bed with her husband, Arna could not fall asleep for a long time. Cassian got out of bed and told her to go to sleep without him. Herzog sat down at the table to work, but Arna still couldn't sleep. She wondered what would happen to him when she left him. Probably he will marry another girl, and this somehow confused her. She did not understand where this strange feeling came from, because she thought that she would leave in 3 months. The girl thought and did not notice how Cassian approached her. He leaned towards her and was about to kiss her, and she asked if he would do that after their agreement. Cassian kissed Arna, and she never thought a kiss could be so sweet. Then the Duke wished his wife good night and went to work. In the morning, as Arna sat in the garden with Crave, she thought about that kiss and wondered why she hadn't resisted. After all, she would not allow this to anyone else. Cassian approached them with Sir Lascelles. He asked Lady Arnie how she was feeling after yesterday's situation. To his surprise, she was very calm. Arna replied that Sir Crave had protected her yesterday. Cassian reported that the assassin's body had unexpectedly disappeared from the room this morning. Therefore, it is assumed that magic is involved in this attack. That's why the killer got through security so easily. Cassian did not think that the Emperor would act like this. Therefore, so that this would not happen again, he decided that his wife would be guarded by both Sir Crave and his personal bodyguard, Sir Lascelles. The girl was worried about her husband, who was left without a bodyguard. But he added that he would not be at home for a while, and that Alan would also help her. The boy greeted and introduced himself to the Duchess, Count Alan Armano, personal assistant to Duke Cassian of Ternugent, and now Her Highness. Arna smiled and introduced herself back to him. Alan said it was an honor for him to help her, although he wasn't really happy about it. At this time in the Imperial Palace, the Emperor shouted at his subordinates because they had passed through the security, reached the bedroom, but failed to kill the Duchess. Joseph ordered them to try again. An aide informed him that Ternugent's estate had tripled its security. The Emperor was angry and said that he would not abandon this project. Then the assistant told the Emperor that he could try something else. Joseph hugged Samuel and praised him, adding that he had always believed in him. Alan brought Duke Cassian an invitation to an evening from the Imperial Palace. The Duke replied that it was probably some kind of trap. The assistant agreed with him and asked what he would do. He added that you can wait for another convenient opportunity. because that way you can get into the dragon's lair without catching him. Sir Lascelles entered them and informed them that an assassin had come to Lady Arna's during the day in the guise of a servant, but that Sir Crave had dealt with him. But Lascelles added that Crave is a little weird because he talks to his sword, but he assumed it was a Leviathan sword for slaying dragons. Everything was coming together, Cassian thought. The Duke noticed that his bodyguard wanted to add something else. Lascelles said the Duchess seemed to him a rather strange girl. He explained what was confusing him. Any lady in her position would have passed out at the sight of a murdered man. But Lady Arnie calmly continued to drink her tea when Sir Crave killed a servant by her side. It was the same last time. When the bandit's body was lying next to her, she stood motionless. Lascelles did not understand how you could remain so calm when you were in danger. Nor did Sir Lascelles understand why the lady was not afraid of the dead man. Cassian considered his words. He always considered his wife weak and fragile. When Lady Arnie had a dancing lesson, Cassian watched his wife from his window, which was opposite hers. She noticed him and he waved at her. Arna waved him back, and Madame Gwen said that she was very pleased that they had such a warm relationship. She was pleased that Cassian had found such a wonderful wife. Lady Agatha told Arnie that she is weak but strong in character. After this situation with the Empress, people began to respect the Duchess even more. Madame Guyon said that the place next to the Duke of Ternugent was quite special. Not every girl can occupy him and not everyone can be trusted. Cassian lost both parents at a very early age, so he never felt the warmth of a family. Almost no one took care of him and he grew up alone in Ternugent Castle. Of course, in his adult life, people began to appear around him, but no one could see his true character. Many tried to get close to him to get what was his, namely his fortune and Ternugent's political power. Madame Gwen added that her place as a duchess was special, because no one would wave at him like that and smile sincerely. She asked Arna to always be with him. Duchess Rosalia asked her daughter what had happened to her that she contacted at such a late hour. Arna said that she had been asked not to leave the Duke. She complained to her mother that she wanted to divorce after 2 months, but now she can't. Arna asked her mother if she could really get a divorce. The mother told her that she would do as she wished. After all, she married her only because Arna did not think about a romantic relationship. The Duchess was worried that Arna might become lonely when the people close to her left her, and she would live a long life as a swordsman. At the end of the conversation, the mother told Arna to do as her heart felt. Then the girl said that she was coming home just now. The Duchess said she had to fulfill her promise first and hung up, and Arna knew that if she stayed here, she would change her decision because of him. Cassian followed her into the evening garden and told her that tomorrow they were going to a ball at the Imperial Palace. Arna hugged her husband and listened to his heartbeat. She remembered Madame Gwen's words, and thought that she wanted to know as much about him as possible. Cassian asked why she was looking at him so intently. The girl replied to her husband that she liked his handsome face. Then he joked that he would protect it if she liked it that much. As they approached the palace, Cassian waved his wife out of the carriage and told her that tonight's ball might make a lot of noise. The aristocrats in the hall discussed that they did not know the reason behind the ball. Sir Tessalaka saw Duke Cassian and quickly approached him. The Duke said they could talk later, but the man insisted it was an urgent conversation, as he needed to know about it as soon as possible. Sir Crave then reassured the Duke that he would guard Lady Arnie while Cassian could go about his business. The Duke confided in Sir Crave. Prince Edward saw his beloved from the balcony and waved to Lady Arna. Crave asked Arnie if this was the same strange prince. The girl answered him, but she was worried about something completely different. She hoped that she would be able to see the Emperor at least today, but neither he nor the Empress was there. Arna already thought that maybe she was punished by the Emperor for that incident. Crave asked the lady what their plans were for the evening. Arna replied that she would like to know something about one person. But the problem is that she was afraid that then she would think about this person even more. The girl wasn't sure she wanted to know anything about Cassian. Crave resented her indecisiveness, adding that someone had taken over his commander's body because she was not what she used to be. The boy reminded her that his commander belonged to the Order of the Golden Dragon, and from the moment she saved his life, he respected her as a knight and followed her. And now when Crave imagined that that commander was gone, he felt very sad. Prince Edward became jealous of Lady Arnie with Sir Crave and decided to act. On his way from the second floor to the first in the corridor, he saw the Emperor's senior servant and the scribe discussing that the red-haired knight should be removed first. Prince Edward popped out from around the corner and announced that he didn't know what they were up to, but he wanted to help take down that horrible red-haired knight. The prince approached Lady Arna and greeted her. Sir Crave greeted Prince Edward, but he informed him that the warden was looking for him. Crave understood that in this way the prince was trying to get rid of him in order to molest Lady Arna. Then he asked the prince to show him the way to the warden. He did not want to, but had to leave Lady Arna. When Arna was alone, the first thing she looked at was Cassian, who was talking about business. For some reason, she always felt lonely without him, and this feeling was unusual for her. Arna wondered what was happening to her lately. Suddenly, a girl came up to her, who was very happy to meet them. She called herself the Duke's daughter, Frisia. The girl said that she had dreamed of meeting Lady Arna for a long time and offered a drink for the meeting. She called the waiter and he brought them 2 glasses of wine. After taking a sip of wine, Arna fainted and almost fell. But the waiter picked her up and smiled at the girl, who said their plan had worked.